The pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We can all remain standing for just a moment, in memory of the children and adults that died today in Nashville, Tennessee. Thank you. Our agenda.
Approval of the regular board meeting agenda, March 27th.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Thank you. Minutes.
Entertained motion for approval of March 13, 2023 regular board meeting minutes.
All in favor? Any questions on the minutes? Hearing none, all in favor? Aye. Anyone opposed? Unanimous. Student body report. Gianna. How are you?
Wow,
Okay.
I apologize for my absence last time. I was in dress rehearsal for the show, which did go well last week, if I do say so myself.
We loved it.
I'm glad you did. You may not have noticed, but I could sneak some of you guys out of the crowd. It's not that bad of a distance. Both of the middle school and high school patronage teams won their competition divisions in February. The middle school team won their division by a historic 6-point lead. Both teams are moving on to compete at the sectional finals within the next few weeks. The competitions will encompass all of the books from both the fall and spring reading lists, and they will go up against the winners of their other divisions. I really wish them luck. The high school competes tomorrow, Tuesday the 28th, and the middle school competes April 13th. The Earthwise Club began meeting in February. They have had a guest speaker, Dan Dizarn from SUNY Geneseo. He's the Director of Sustainability, and have a trip planned in April to Lorenz Park, and then another trip in May to Letchworth State Park. Earthwise Club plans to attend a Board of Education meeting in June to update you guys on the progress and goals for next year. We had a successful high school wellness day, or should I say afternoon, on March 16th. We participated in a variety of activities, and the day ended in a performance by a magician, which was enjoyed by both students and staff. Although it may not look like it, spring sports have sprung. JV varsity softball and baseball have our first games scheduled for Thursday, the 30th. Don't know if that'll happen though, based on the weather currently. And track and field and golf are practicing for their first meets and matches. Both high school Odyssey of the Mind teams in Balsa and vehicle categories got first place at regionals and will be attending states. Congratulations, OMers. Any questions?
Excellent report. Excellent place. Thank you indeed.
Thank you.
Okay. We'll go right to administrative updates. So, Mr. Forrester. Budget presentation.
Two-hand.
All right.
All right, so
Okay.
we're gonna just go over our central services budget and our special ed budget this evening. Central services, we're starting here with the Board of Education stuff. What's working? Where did it go, Mr. Hull?
When you're pointing it at that screen, it's not
Yeah,
gonna work.
it was super slow and you can see it, so it's
Yeah.
kind of not the ideal scenario, but anyway. So there is really nothing changing here much at all. A couple salary contractual changes from one year to the next. Other than that, nothing is really changing. I will say we just got our final request from BOCES late last week, so those BOCES numbers are not updated. But beyond that, everything is as current as best we have it today. But there's not anything really changing in here. I would point out a couple here in like in the business office, our contractual obligations in the business office going up by about $15,000. That is primarily driven by the issuance of debt for both capital project buses. Our bond council gets paid out of there, just some ways that we try to keep money that could get paid for through project, try to keep it out of the project, just with money being tight in the project, keep as much out of that as we can to put that money into the project to make sure that we're getting as much work done as we can. Again, there's not a lot else changing here. Our legal services going up a little bit. The BOCES legal services are going up. Not a lot of money, $9,000, but as a percentage of pretty good numbers, as BOCES has added another attorney to their state. Here we have the biggest change that we have here is in that 1480 public relations, public information section. We have a PR firm out of PR out of Denver Region BOCES that we cross contract with to help us with our communication and things like that. It's kind of directly tied to that strategic plan that we're looking at. Trying to improve our communication. We hear that pretty regularly through the course of collecting data when we're putting together the strategic plan. So this is just trying to align our resources with our strategic plan and what we heard coming out of that. And here again, everything else in this area is really pretty consistent, pretty flat year over year. Moving on to special ed, and again, pretty flat year over year. You're going up $150,000. Our students aren't changing much. We have some salaries that are going up as a result of the GFA contract that is driving some of that. But again, overall, not a lot going on there. The special ed department seems to be running pretty well. One point that I will show here is the summer school, almost $46,000 is going to zero. We're thinking we're going to pay for most of that next summer with our ARP literacy fund or ARP summer program fund. So you do see that line is kind of on where but I know I've gone through this pretty quickly, but if you look, there's really not a lot changing any single line item again outside of some labor contractual obligations. Again, don't hold on to those BOCES numbers. We're going to tweak those as they come around. Again, we just got those last week, so not a whole lot of change. I would argue the budget overall, other than those are pretty consistent. Is there any particular line that people wanted to look at, wanted to ask about?
Just out of curiosity, the dues, the 8,500, is that basically our dues to the state school boards association?
That's what enroll schools, yeah.
Okay.
That's what enroll schools.
Thanks.
Other than that, there's really not a ton of change. There's no questions on the. Thank you.
That's right.
The superintendent.
So thank you, everyone. Gianna was talking a lot about the play last week, and we had an opportunity to go. It was very powerful. As always, a great show and was entertaining. But we have some other things I'd like to acknowledge and just congratulate. Last Friday, Edgewood Farm was awarded the Livingston County Farm of the Year by the Chamber of Commerce. And some of the criteria is not only to be a productive farm in Livingston County, but it's also to find a family that gives back to their community. And, I think it speaks highly of Craig and Clay folks from Edgewood Farm. They obviously are involved in our school board and other village and town boards. So just thank you for not only feeding us, but also being part of our boards and giving back to your community. Congratulations.
Amen.
And then, as Gianna said, states, here we come. So we have 4 teams from Odyssey of the Mind that are going on to states. And Saturday, the regionals were held at Mount Morris Central School District, and just to watch the students perform and to overcome obstacles. They create their prop, they create their skit, and when things don't go wrong, it's amazing to watch them come together and just improvise. And Will Rounding is hilarious. Oh my goodness, they had a couple of snafus, but he just rolled with it and it went really well. So we wish them luck. April 15th, I believe, is when states are. And then tonight we do have our strategic plan being board approved, and just wanted to take some time to really thank our strategic plan committee members. And David Levy, he was here, he was one of our members. Really, I feel that as we're looking to adopt this plan tonight, you know, it's a plan that is a work in progress, and we are adopting the goals and action steps and objectives for really the next year, but it's a document that will constantly be updated. We need to continue to work on adding the costs so that we make sure that as we are going through the budget cycle like we are now, that we are designating money to really highlight and support the priorities that we have. Just a little bit of background, you know, the consultants really looked at all the historical documents and the current documents. So if you remember in the 1920 school year, we had started this process, and Marla Iverson had already collected data from the community, from surveys. She had held a couple of focus groups, and then March hit and it was put on a back burner. So the consultant reviewed all of that information as well as current information. We did do a survey. From that survey, we identified 5 areas that we wanted to look into a little bit deeper to gather more information. We put those 5 areas on our budget exit poll survey, gathered information there. So really our hope was to say, this is what we've heard from you. Are we on the right track? Please give us your feedback. And pretty consistently, the areas continue to come to the top. As we moved through this, we were also going to do focus groups. And then in one of our meetings, we determined that instead of doing focus groups, we were going to have full work groups. And the difference is, instead of having an opportunity to gather more feedback, what we did is we asked these goal work groups to help develop the objectives and the action steps that you are approving tonight in the board packet. So again, you really see the objectives and action steps for 2 years. This is a 5-year plan, so we know there's lots of work that will be created from the first 2 years, and then every July we will update and talk about how we're doing on the plan and what our focus will be for that following year. So these were the members of our work groups. So you can see we invited faculty and community members who were part of our groups, and they spent 2 days, 1 day in August, and then most of the second meetings were done via Zoom to help develop those goal action steps and objectives. So we also did a thought exchange at the end. We put our draft plan out there and said, tell us what you see. And some areas did come up to the top. Communication, there really was a plea for more communication between the board. And so Allison's here on a monthly basis. We meet and we'll start bringing David back to those meetings. So there's an opportunity for that communication. If there's a further need for opportunities to speak to the board, we can look at coffee hours or some other avenue to allow that to happen. Another area, we're going to talk about this a little bit later, is the need to continue to improve our facilities. Everyone who has a child in the school is well aware of the conditions of the large gym and where we are with the floor and that replacement, plus the black walls. So just some steps that we've already taken place with the facilities as we are developing a 10-year facility plan that's really going to help us identify what projects are happening when. Unfortunately, our projects lately have been very reactive, just trying to solve a problem. And we'd like to get to the point where we are very proactive and we know all of the capital projects that will be out for the next 5, 10, 15 years. One of the things that we did start as well was in the 1920 school year, we started the capital outlay project. In 1920, that was a $100,000 capital project that really was about maintenance. And we've continued that and actually increased it to $250,000 a year. If you're doing any type of construction in your home, you're noticing that costs are escalating. So we increased that to try and help and meet that need of our maintenance. As well, our building is 50 years old, and you know, as I turned 50 this year, it kind of feels like you're falling apart at times. So, you know, I need a little bit more maintenance. You know, maybe my knee might need some surgery. I'm not sure. But we know that we need to continue to be thoughtful with how we're planning our projects and making sure that those annual maintenance pieces are being kept as a priority. The other two areas that really came out were curriculum instruction. So how are we going to have new curricular offerings that wasn't identified in our current plan? That's a step that will be in like year 3 or 4. How do we offer diverse learning opportunities? And then from the social emotional perspective, we really heard pretty strongly that teachers want to be involved in the planning process. They know that they are going to be very important in helping roll out these initiatives, so they want to be involved in the process. So we have moved forward with these initiatives, and I am excited to have the board approve this plan. So what are the goals? The first one is really talking about transition, and this is transition from elementary from entering our school as a kindergartner to going from elementary to middle school to high school, and then high school to post-secondary. And that really does incorporate our curriculum and instruction goals and all those pieces. One of the things that I pointed out a couple of board meetings ago is how transient our population is becoming, and that we've had so many new students. One of the things that we need to be mindful of is a lot of new students move in throughout the year, and we do a lot of our informing parents of how to access school tool, how to sign up for certain things all at the beginning of the year, and we need to figure out a way to make sure that communication and information is available to parents throughout the entire year as we have new students transition in and out of the district. So that's definitely part of that goal. The next part was really looking at systematically providing social and emotional support for students, staff, and community. You know that not only are our students' needs increasing in regards to social emotional support, so we're trying to be very systematic, really identify what our needs are, and then how do we address those. At the April 10th board meeting, Stephanie Miller will be doing an update and presentation. So we do a survey twice a year. This is where we actually received a lot of our data that we used in the plan, the panorama survey. And so she will report out on what the results said and then what our next steps are. The third goal is communication. We really want to be the best and most accurate way to inform our staff members, families, and community at large about what is going on at school, and making sure that we are fostering a welcoming and inclusive environment at Geneseo. And then, of course, the last one is really to make sure that we have a transparent financial budget that supports all these initiatives, but also is something that everyone is fully aware of and understands what that process is and how we identify our priorities and then budget for them. So as I said, what are the next steps? We need to develop our mission and vision. We need to develop our core beliefs. And the plan is a living document. You'll be reported on July 2023 and modified as necessary. And then annual board and district goals will emanate from the plan every year. Before we move on to the next part, were there any questions in regards to the strategic plan? So as I talked about in our facilities master plan, we do have to work on replacing the floor, and the work will begin over the spring recess, and the replacement process will take approximately 4 weeks. The insurance company and the flooring company were actually ready to start this week. However, thankfully, Mr. Veely said, you know what, just in case the weather doesn't hold out, why don't we give it 1 more week of having PE classes inside, and we'll start the week over break. And as we're all watching the wet snowflakes come down, that was a good decision by Mr. Veely. So playground update, if you remember, we had an inspection completed on our playground in August. They identified that many of the pieces in the playground were either broken and unsafe and needed to be removed, so they were. So we've been working with our architect SEI and our civil engineer EDR on developing plans to replace our playground. And They've had some preliminary meetings and Mr. Van Eck has been involved in those meetings and he is providing feedback and really advocating for the best playground that we can afford for the students at GCS. One of the things that is proven to be challenging is because of the playground being located on that hill, really trying to flatten out that area, bring in fill, and then put in the drainage that is required. Unfortunately, that's pretty costly, but we're still working on being creative. I think with every building project, we have to look at for this facility, we have to be creative and think outside the box. And it usually takes 3 or 4 renditions of the plan before we're actually able to put forth a project that we feel is appropriate and affordable for our community. So I've been talking about the future building project. So March 16th, we did have our community building planning meeting. It was an opportunity to gather feedback. Both Mr. Mailover and Mr. Levy were at the meeting asking great questions. That night, we presented 4 different plans for the gym replacement, and costs range from 20 million to 47 million. And so I will go through the drawings tonight, but we have really asked our architects to head back to the drawing board because when we looked at what that local share would be for our taxpayers, it was very high. When you think about the fact that we have a 70% building aid and asking our community to spend 30 or pay 30% of a $20-25 million building project, that becomes very expensive very quickly. So I will just, like I said, go through the plans just to give you an idea of what we're looking at. So this is the lower level of the large gym. So if you think about that being switched to that way, that was the way it's facing. So when you see the orange and yellow, the orange is moderate renovation and the yellow is very light. So very light would be tile, new paint, really basically the superficial fixtures that would be replaced. And what we'd be doing in this plan would be simply replacing, tearing down the current block walls and putting up the same block walls, not changing the layout or anything in the facility. When you look at the upper level, again, really just doing finishes, not increasing our gym space or adding any instructional space. And based on the cost estimates, this plan, just replacing our block walls as is, would be a $20 million building project. So we said, well, what if we try to add instructional space? Because when we think about the large gym, I think one of the things that easily is forgotten is that this is the physical education's classroom. This is where they're offering their classes every day, all day long. So you can see there's lots of lines on this gym floor. So when the bleachers would be back, you would have 3 instructional spaces across the gym. So you could have 3 different classes in there. So that would really free up some of the space in our schedule because we are at times restricted by offering PE classes. You obviously can't have a 7th grade student in with a 12th grade student, so we have to take those things into consideration as well. The blue is an addition, and so those would be new team rooms, new locker rooms, and in this, the yellow at the top is a hallway. We would be adding an elevator for handicap accessibility for the gym. Right now, especially during the current project, the only way someone in a wheelchair that can access our large gym is to either be out back and come up the handicap accessible ramp by the loading dock, or to come into the school and use our very untrustworthy freight elevator. So there aren't good options for our handicap accessible visitors and spectators. That's the lower level. The top level, you'll see those blue areas. Those would be BK classrooms. So at this point, our preschoolers have their classes located at Pride and Joy up on Millennium Drive. And so we would love to be able to add space that would drive building aid units and allow us to have our pre-K students here on site. It just would add that transition of when we think about kindergartners starting here, they're already here as 4-year-olds. We did receive additional funds to add another UK classroom. So we would love to be able to provide space to have them here at our building. This plan is approximately $34 million. So we also looked at, again, really adding that additional instructional space, and then they moved the addition from the end of the gym to the side of the gym. And then again, that's where your locker rooms, your team rooms would be relocated to that space. And on the upper level, we would, oh, I put the wrong button, John. On the upper level, that's where you can take classrooms. We're firmly in agreement that this is not the plan for us, because this one was approximately $47, and just, I mean, unfortunately, what we're seeing are the prices of construction just have escalated so quickly, even in comparison to the current project that we have, that the costs are astronomical as we look to try and just provide a safe instructional space for our physical education classrooms. One of the things you'll remember is that this project we had talked about really including more of the things that weren't part of the original project back to the auditorium. And I have had an opportunity to meet with the fine arts department. And really at this point, we need to have a meeting with the architect and campus construction so that they can have a better understanding of what is included in the project. They have some idea, obviously they know their classrooms are being renovated, but they were really unsure of the light and sound system that's taking place in the auditorium. So we really want to make sure that they are firmly aware of the decisions that they helped support and make a year ago. So those meetings are ongoing. So a lot of information about those concepts. And like I said, we're back to the drawing board with our architect just because of the overall cost of these programs and plans. Upcoming events, we do have our All-State Solo Festival on March 31st. There's our Odyssey of the Mind State Finals, and then next week we are on spring recess. So any questions? So if we go outside the footprint without utilizing that space for UPK, that all that cost becomes on the local taxpayers. So right now, the only new bill, one way to drive state aid is to have something that would qualify for what the state education department believes is a viable addition. UPK, STEAM, those are still the areas that are driving that aid. If we were just to build those locker rooms and team rooms and not put pre-K on top, then none of it would be equal. Okay, stay tuned, stay tuned.
Thank you. Questions? Okay. Mr. Levy and Mr. Malaber. Mr. Levy, you're first.
Thank you. I just wanted to thank Superintendent for inviting me to have been a part of the strategic planning process. It's really valuable to be in the room where the discussions were going on. I felt some special responsibility as the only non-teacher, non-staff parent on the board to try to ensure that the community perspective on this stuff was shared. I wanted to offer myself up to you this evening before you vote if you have questions or concerns as sort of a second perspective on these things. One concern I do want to just kind of state here is that I think without having those completed mission, vision, and core belief statements, that there's a sense in which the strategic plan is sort of, I'll say, insecured or unsecured, right? A little bit of worry that we'll just be sort of appending those sorts of statements to fit what the strategic plan seems to predict as opposed to allowing those things to drive the process. So that's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Mr. Malaber, you're up.
I want to take this opportunity to thank Superintendent Flowers for holding the meeting on March 16th for the upcoming future building proposal. I view this as a once in a generation opportunity to really move the district forward and to catch the district up. I'm disheartened to hear statements that what was presented is unaffordable. To me, that decision lies with the voters. let the voters decide what is affordable and not. The state of New York has done the formula and has determined what Geneseo District's aid is. So I just, this is a once in a generation opportunity to really catch the district up and to really provide the students in the community a building that is useful and conducive to students, both health and learning. Being able to add up to 3 gym spaces will really improve the quality of life of our student population. Currently, students sometimes practice far into the evening, especially because a lot of our students also then go from gym space to then the theater space to participate in play. So I just, please take that under advisement as you're, doing the hard work of putting together a plan. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Good.
Just want to follow up with both of you, if I could, just very, Matt, I appreciate what you said. And from my perspective, and I know we typically don't have the back and forth, but I just feel it's important to say it now. I don't think any of us believe that this won't get done. It's just, we have to do diligence on all of the engineering stuff before we can effectively make it. I think, I know, and Ms. Fowler said it earlier, we usually go through 2, 3 iterations before we ultimately feel confident. So please don't take that as, no, it's not going to be done. Whatever it is, we do need to do something, just don't know how much. And David, to your point, I can assure you, Mrs. Flowers knows, I have spent a lot of her time talking through the mission, the vision, and some of the other elements of this. And we felt it was important to get started tonight because there's been some great work done. And we didn't want to send a message that wasn't appreciated. But there is more work to be done. We have spent a lot of time on those elements that you specifically referenced. So I'll leave it there. I just didn't want to leave it.
All right, well, we'll switch right to committee reports. Mike, you're up, the audit and finance.
So we did meet tonight. We went through the kind of the instructional and admin areas of the budget. We didn't complete the complete budget yet. I think Ken and Kenny are going to try to have that to the board in the next few days or next week. So we may have to look at that by email once we see the completed budget. And then if it needs to be approved or adopted by the 21st, April 21st. And then, so we may, I don't know if we have to have a quick meeting between now and then or not. But that'll be determined by the email.
I think we should be able to answer that on next April.
Right, just if there were questions or concerns, we could absolutely meet that. Yeah, we could absolutely have a special meeting.
Good. Thank you. Thank you. Policy did not meet. GCEF.
No, I know they are approving grants, and I just saw a request come in for the middle school wellness day that is going to be planned. So they're great at supporting our students, our staff. I also know, I think they've got another one of their projects planned for May, which is special that happens in May. So looking forward to having them help us with the project.
Great. Okay, well then, let's move right along to our action items, personnel, Mike.
Under now, I'd like to entertain a consent motion for items 7.02 through 7.09.
Sorry, there are questions on any of those items? Everybody okay? Well, then, All in favor, say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? Unanimous, thank you. And, business,
Under new business, I entertain a consent motion for items 8.02 to 8.08.
second. Okay, questions on any of those?
Yes.
Go ahead.
8.07 and 8.08. I struggle to see what's different other than the dollar amount on those two. They say that they're the same thing, so I don't know.
Exactly. So that's the.
Is it like two pieces of the same thing? or-
Yes, so it's the change of the controls in the
Mhm.
elementary.
Yeah.
building. And so we can do capital outlay for $100,000. And get all of our building need on that next year. The 134,000 is then gonna be amortized over 15 because it exceeds the one.
So that's why it's the same thing.
Correct.
Okay, that's what I just want to make sure. Yep. Okay. Figured there was a reason.
Anyone else? Therefore, all in favor of that motion, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? No, unanimous, thank you. And last, business office.
Business office, entertain a consent motion for items 9.02 to 9.05.
Second?
Questions on any of those items? Routine items. Everybody good? Okay, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? Unanimous, thank you. And, which leads us to,
Entertain a motion to enter into executive session for one litigation matter and one personnel.
Second?
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, everyone. Go on.